This piece actually faced several challenges. The first off was trying to get the beautiful story out of the grandmother. The interview went a little rough. It was my first time producing, really my first time leading an interview for a show like this. And so I asked questions, and I guess they were a little close-ended, or they weren't worded in an effective way to get her to tell the story. And so I think I asked 5 questions and maybe got 10 seconds in responses, which is my fault. Like, I didn't ask the right questions. And finally, the granddaughter stepped up and she said, "Grandma, just tell this kid your story." And she really opened up from that point forward. And the interview was phenomenal past that point. What it was is, it was a WKU alumni who had a grandma, and her grandma and grandfather met right before World War II. And they were actually about to get married, or they wanted to get married before he left. But a few days before they could actually get it done, he left, went to war, and so each one of them wrote a letter every day, back and forth to each other. And so they had thousands of letters by the time that the war was over. And so now what this lady was doing is she was taking the letters, making copies of them, and actually cutting out significant words or portions of the letter and turning them into jewelry. And so I thought it was a fantastic story. It's nothing like I'd ever seen before, and it's funny because the story literally fell into my lap. You hear it a lot in broadcasting classes and where they say everyone has a story, and it's not cliche because everyone truly does have a story. Something happened in every person's life that is truly worth telling, and you don't know what it's going to be until you sit down and talk to someone, or in my case, someone had already told the story, but I was trying to share it in a different medium. And so I will be honest, before starting here, I might have seen that jewelry and be like, that's cool, but I wouldn't have done much with it. But since working at the station, I realized that as journalists and broadcasters, we have a duty to share these stories with the world. These people have inspiring stories that can really change people, and so it's our duty to tell those. In my case, it's a love story from back in the 1940s, but love, especially in this case, it's not dated. It's still relevant today, and I think a lot of young couples can actually learn a lot from these two individuals. They stuck together for 3 years during World War II, where their only contact was writing letters. Whereas today, some people, if they lose touch with their significant other for a month or two, they start to fall apart. But these two individuals found a way back in the 1940s to have their love shared across thousands of miles in an ocean, and I think that is absolutely phenomenal.
A lot of people make jewelry or whatnot, but I actually been taking something that's one of my great passions, which is family and letter writing, and I've turned that into jewelry. So I've taken my grandparents' World War II love letters and I've been turning them into what people have called wearable art. I grew up hearing about this torrid love affair my grandparents had for 3 years, 3 months, and 4 days during World War II, and how they wrote each other every day.
Well, I met him when I was 18. I was a senior in high school. That's when I met him. And I really kind of fell for him right away. And we went together 3 years before he was drafted. He was in Atlantic City waiting to go overseas, and they thought they'd go, and then they'd go, and then they didn't, and so they were there. So I decided that, well, I'd just go up there to see him. And I bought this dress to take. And I told my mother, I said, well, I think maybe we might get married if I get up there, you know. But anyway, the day before I was supposed to go, he called me and told me not to come because they were leaving in the morning. And then he was gone for 3 years, so it was a long time. When he first went in, they moved him different places, you know. And I told him, I said, well, when you're in a place where you think you're going to stay for a long time, write me a letter, and each paragraph can start with a letter where you're staying. So when I got this letter one day, and it started with an N, and I thought, well, I better get my pencil. So I got my pencil and read the letter, and then when I got through with the letter, I knew where he was, but I never did tell anybody. I wrote every day for 3 years and 3 months, and he did too. So there was a lot of letters. And of course, you didn't ever know if they were coming home or not, but he lived through it all. And then we got married. We were married 54 years when he passed away. So it was a long time.
My favorite part of the letters probably is the longing that I can feel simply by reading my grandma and grandpa's words to each other. That's my favorite part of it. Each letter entailed a longing for each other, this burning for each other, because they didn't see each other for 3 years, 3 months, and 4 days, and they stayed true to each other. Although they were young and didn't know if that person would have changed in 3 years, they waited for each other. And so I just asked my grandma a couple of years ago if I could take one of those letters and make a little simple bracelet out of it. And she was like, take whatever you want. We have thousands of these things. It was the back page of a letter from New Year's Eve, 1943. And she was talking about, hopefully by this time next year, you'll be home from the war will be over, and we will have a home of our own and be married. So I took a part of that letter, and it was a really small little space, but what remained was a lot more pretty lipstick and words, and so I decided to use the rest of that to make a necklace, and then a ring, and then another bracelet, and then I started to kind of garner some attention, I guess, from family members and other people. That was about a year ago. And it's pretty much snowballed since then. I take the letters, the original letters, and I make color copies of it to retain all the colors, the old paper colors and the lipstick colors and everything else. And I use different shaped clear glass, and I adhere the copy of the letter to the clear glass. And then I cut that out and then layer it on the bottom with several other pieces of like cardstock and stuff, so nothing bleeds through. And then I use just random glass fragments and gemstones and throw it all together and usually wrap it in wire and hope it looks okay to somebody. But yeah, that's how I go about it. That's pretty much the standard process. When I've done art shows and stuff like that, or wherever it's being sold, people always kind of look at it like, what's that? And they hear what it is and they're like, really? World War II love letters from your grandparents. So it's been very well received, and it's just been a lot of fun. For me, I didn't live through it and I didn't experience all of that, and she's the one who lived through all of it, so she's the one who really has the memories. And I always say she's the true artist behind it, she and my grandpa, because they're the ones who wrote the letters and they wrote those words. I'm just cutting them up and putting them on glass and wrapping them in wire, so I'm not doing a whole lot. They're the artists behind it all. It's been so much fun the past year, and if it were to all end today, I'd be okay with it, because it's been one heck of a ride and fun having Grandma around to experience it, so it's been wonderful.